And now we get to have Jonathon speaking with us. Some of you who've done my boot camp, you know Jonathon, or you've heard him on my podcast, the Cupid's Coach podcast. This guy has been doing dating coaching, gosh, I don't know, 15 years or so. He's written a book called What the Heck is Self-Love Anyway, right? Did I get that right, Jonathon? And I love this man. He's like my brother, and he is really good at giving the man's perspective, especially with strong, accomplished women who want to do dating well and want to meet men who are on their level. So he's the king of all such things. Welcome to the program, Jonathon Aslay.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I was fiddling with the mute button or the microphone. So how can I support you?
Well, the focus tonight is social magnetism. So rather than relying on a dating site or a matchmaker, let's make sure we're doing our part out there in the world. Okay. So
Yeah.
when we're at the car wash, which is actually one of my favorite places to meet people, you're all stuck there for 15 minutes. You might just guess, well, are you the BMW or the Range Rover? It's a great place to meet people.
Yeah.
And also the social magnetism piece when we're in the early phases of courtship. How can we bring it rather than sitting there expecting somebody to just do all the work? So it's our part in creating connection with people. So I'd love to hear anything you have to share about that. And maybe you have examples of people who've done that well and brought love to the dating process as opposed to waiting for somebody to bring it to you, right? So anything along those lines that would be helpful, we'd love to hear from you.
Well, this is a great question, and I recognize the uncomfortableness it is to connect to a total stranger. You know, I think it's important to recognize that it can be a very uncomfortable thing to just, it's one thing you're at a grocery store and, somebody asks to move the aisle, that sort of thing. But to actually make a connection with another human being can be both scary, it can be uncomfortable. I think it's important to recognize that that's a truth, because in many cases you're meeting a total stranger, you don't know their backstory, you don't even know if the person you say hello to is married or in a relationship with someone, and so it's important to recognize that. I think the way I approach going out in real life and I say that because I spend a lot of time behind a computer screen during most given day, is to leave the house with an intention of just to be open to all possibilities. Like, set that as an intention. And I do that. I actually have a little sign on my door. This is the truth, okay? That literally, when I walk out, it says open and receptive to love. Like, I have that little note on my door, so I see it as I walk out of the house. Be open and receptive. I think that right off the bat, setting that intention is at least it's a step in the right direction. I think flirting skills, okay, now I'm going to kind of mix it into what I think is flirting skills. You know, that's, I use the word skills, right? That's something that is, I believe, some people naturally have the gift of it and other people have to learn that. I think it takes, like any skill, it takes practice to actually create that. I think you use the word magnetism, that create that spark, that energy. I don't know if anyone in this group has happened to yet see the Netflix series called Nobody Wants This.
I've heard about it, and Jessica Fast talked about it. So it's about a rabbi, right?
It's about a rabbi who meets a shiksa, which is a non-rabbi, or excuse me, non-Jewish woman. But it's interesting to watch this. I've actually, I'm going to be a little bit candid here. I've watched this series now 3 times. Now I've watched it and that's 25 minutes each episode. There's 10 episodes, so it's a 5-hour watch. I binged watched the series and then I went back to replay parts, their interaction. I've actually been examining it from a human behavior perspective. And why this might be of value to everybody to, at least if nothing else, watch the first episode or the first 2 episodes to to observe what is known as energetic connection. What they experience, we use the term chemistry. I'm not a fan of the word chemistry. I'm only because we oftentimes associate it with physical attraction or even lust or limerence. I actually like to, why I'm using the term energetic connection is that these two are connecting on an energetic level. And it's worth watching just to observe what, like, I'm going to call healthy flirting is healthy interaction.
Especially when you leave your house with the mindset that it's going to happen. What I really
Well,
think,
not that it's going to happen, that you're open and receptive to anything that happens. I want to differentiate that because
yeah,
that's an expectation.
yeah, open. And the other thing that makes all the difference in the world is when we are looking to bring a smile to someone's face and to
Yeah.
contribute. When we go to a dating event, a singles party, or a meetup group or something, it's always a little, uncomfortable because we're self-conscious. So once we're thinking about bringing a smile to Jonathan's face, and how can I walk up to Jonathan and say exactly what Erica just explained or suggested? I don't think we've met yet. I'm Julie. Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
I'm focused on making you feel comfortable rather than worried about I'm not feeling comfortable, right? So we
Well,
can't.
it's interesting because I've been to some of your singles mixers and you have a very well trained group of clients and participants, because I can't tell you how many times I've had the women there walk up and literally say the exact same thing, and it breaks the ice, and if there's connection, great. If not, I like your perception around being of service to someone else. In other words, what can I give? In
Mhm.
fact, I had a friend of mine, we were having an interesting discussion, and we liken it like if you go to someone's house for a party, or it's like, what do I bring? Is like this new thing I've been thinking about is, what can I bring to this circumstance? What can I bring to this experience? In other words, like I bring usually a bottle of wine to someone's home, or yesterday I visited a friend and I hadn't been to her home before and I brought her a candle, and she's a friend, but I wanted to, it's having this mindset. What can I bring? What
Yeah.
can I give? How can
Mhm.
I be open? These are all the little things, because genuine flirting is not easy. Okay, I'm be candid with you. It's like, again, it's a skill, but most everybody can be curious about another human being. That doesn't take much work. Being curious, being open, being receptive. What can I bring? What can I give? Those are all things that are doesn't require skill. Okay, it just requires effort.
I heard about a date that happened last week, and the reason why it didn't go better is because she didn't have that element of curiosity. She was nervous, she was uncomfortable, she was feeling closed in, kind of introverted. And so she's
Yeah.
stuck in her own head instead of being naturally curious about who Jonathan might be. For people who do get anxious and self-conscious, I recommend that you get to the place where you're going to go to your date early, pull around the corner, sit in your car for a little bit, and read the person's profile again and start to develop the curiosity. Oh, went to school in Baltimore. Wow, what'd you love about Baltimore? You're starting to think about things that you can talk about. And when they're talking, you're not thinking about what you're going to say. You're thinking about what else? What else can you tell me about that? The natural curiosity. And that's what makes a date more interesting than just, where'd you go to college? Or what'd you study? There's got to be something more. You got to bring the curiosity. There's some,
So,
I wanted to share what about creating magic, Jonathan, um,
okay.
like causing magic rather than expecting it to happen. So I
Yeah.
looked at and what is to cause? To cause something is a person or thing that acts, happens, or exists in such a way that something specific happened as a result. So to be at cause of flirting, for example, is to be the producer of the effect, to
Mm.
cause the social engagement to happen rather than expecting that it's going to happen magically, to be responsible for the bringing of it. And you've come to my parties and you always bring it every time.
Hmm.
So I always make sure you're there. When do I have a party and not invite you?
I think why I come to your events and as a single person is that I'm open and receptive to all possibilities. And that doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to happen. Like, I think when you go in with the expectation, we oftentimes are disappointed. So I go in with no expectation, but I go in open and receptive. And I think that's the way a first date should be. I think one of the biggest challenge with dating is because oftentimes we're meeting a total stranger. It's just not comfortable yet. That's the tricky part. I think it's because there's so much pressure that something has to happen. And if it doesn't happen, then it's like you're back to the drawing board instead of just going in, hey, let's just meet as two people meeting with no expectation of an outcome. Let's
Right.
just connect as two human beings. It's not, directed in any way other than seeing if there's a connection there. And by actually prefacing in advance, I believe takes a little bit of the heat off of the expectation.
Yep. But there is one expectation that I want people to have, which is they're going to bring smiles to the other person's face, and it's going
Well,
to be yeah, but we don't. It's not. Is this going to be the relationship? Is this going to be my last first date? It's way too much pressure.
yeah.
Having the intention to contribute to someone else is perfect. So,
Yeah.
Jonathan, if people want to work with you, what's your specialty? Do you work one-on-one with people? Do you work in groups? How do you go about helping people? Because you've been doing dating coaching for a long time.
I teach an area of what I believe is an underserved area, which is discernment and being really like I think your previous guest had said, I'm all about asking some tough questions to see if there's alignment early on, to see if you're aligned in your values, your lifestyle, your emotional maturity before you get too emotionally invested in someone. And I help a person get clarity on what's really their their core must-haves. Because if you're not clear on your core must-haves, you're going to be like, throwing darts on the wall kind of thing. So that's how I kind of work one-on-one. And I will say this, it is a challenge out there, but like anything, there are people falling in love every day. I know it can feel discouraging, but Julie is the proverbial optimist.
Mhm.
She's the proverbial, you look at the possibilities, not the challenges. But I think, and that's what I appreciate about your work because you approach it from that way. And I invite everybody with a non-attachment to an outcome is be open, receptive, bring a smile to someone's face. Those things um, work, put the odds forever in your favor.
Absolutely. The biggest mistake that we make as women in dating
Yeah.
is to do what my mother-in-law said we shouldn't do. She said that the secret to dating is look at the donut, not the hole. Like look at what's there as opposed to what might be missing. And when we veto, dismiss, discard, or toss in the trash a suitor, a guy who's knocking on our door, he really wants to have a first, a second, a third date with us. When we dismiss him for something that's not a key criteria, that's the biggest mistake I see women making in dating. Um, and so I really encourage people to know what those most important elements are. Good. So just so you guys know how the matches happen, if I've got an idea for an introduction, I'm always going to go to the guy first because we can't handle rejection. We like to think that we want everything equal as men, but no, we don't want to handle rejection. We don't. We can't handle it. We get derailed quite easily. So I wait until I've got Jonathan's yes before I can go to Kelly and say, I have a suitor for you, sweetie. She can say no, but she would be a fool too. So she said
Yeah.
yes. And